This is Robert Kraft, and I'm your host on SNN Network. And joining me right now is Yaron Conforti. He is the CEO of Novamind. It's a private company, but Novamind anticipates to be trading on the CSE under the symbol NM on January 5, 2021. And actually, Novamind will be doing a presentation at the upcoming SNN Network Canada virtual event happening on January 6 and 7. So to watch that presentation, go to canada.snn.network to register and watch. With that, Yaron, thank you for joining me today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on. So this is the first time I'm doing an interview with a company working in psychedelics. So I'm really looking forward to this interview today and learning a little bit more, not just about Novamind, but really the space in general and where we're at. So, to start off, let's get a quick overview and history of Novamind, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. It's an honor to be the first. I bet you'll be doing more of these. We're part of what's now a burgeoning sector, psychedelic medicine, that a lot of people will be familiar with. And our place in that sector is that we're focused on the infrastructure. So specifically, it's the clinics and the clinical research sites that we operate now and that we're building for the future. They're going to serve a regulated psychedelics industry when some of these compounds come online, things that people have been seeing in the headlines, things like compounds like MDMA and psilocybin expected in 2023 and maybe 2025 to be legal prescription medicines.
So where are we currently at in the market? Let's give before we talk about, what makes you different and, all the other typical investor questions I'm going to ask you, and then you're probably going to hear for the rest of your career as a public company CEO, where are we at right now in this space?
Yeah, so I welcome those kinds of questions because obviously it's a nascent space. So what's happening is that in essence, mental health as we know it is being upended. So maybe to demystify psychedelics a bit, the psychedelic renaissance, which is using compounds that were not only stigmatized, but obviously made Schedule I and made illegal, and stopped people from not only using them, applying them in a therapeutic sense, but also stopped researchers from researching them. So that's the renaissance part of what's going on, is that a lot of that work had been done in the past, and generations in the 60s and 70s, some of the work that a lot of people know about, have some awareness about, that I won't go into now. The mental health part, maybe everyone can relate to a lot more easily, in that, it appears that most people that live on planet Earth are either touched by mental health or know someone that is. And it's just as obvious to most of those people that the current tools that are being used aren't effective, and certainly aren't a sustainable solution. So that upending mental health, psychedelic medicine plays a big role, because where there weren't alternatives previously, psychedelic medicine is starting to provide some of those alternatives.
And what would you say it's alternatives to what? Because when we say mental health, and that everybody is touched and or is knows somebody, like what do you mean specifically?
Sure.
Because
generally speaking, it's worth giving a bit of a framework for what I'm going to describe. And there's a term that's often used in psychedelic medicine, which is healing the sick and bettering the well. So in terms of the applications of these therapeutics, you can really start to build an ontology and really understand who you're treating, why, with what compounds, what are those experiences, and how do they provide those transformations, those successful outcomes, where again, to answer your question specifically, the standard of care treatments weren't. So if we use that view and we talk about some of the indications that psychedelic medicine is focusing on, things like treatment-resistant depression and things like eating disorders, these are, or addiction, which is obviously such a big problem that touches so many in so many places. The standard of care in those cases are not effective, or in some cases non-existent, right? In cases like eating disorders. So the opportunity is to apply those, right, in a therapeutic context, and to develop both the compounds, the underlying psychedelic medicines, and the protocols that you're going to use to treat those people. And those people is pretty much as far as your mind can think. But for the time being, Novamind has been focused in many cases on those more desperate cases, people who are suffering from those treatment-resistant conditions. And in that case, we've been doing the work for many years, in fact, helping those types of clients.
Got it. Yeah, that's really what I wanted to get to first, because, it's such a broad spectrum, and there's so many different applications that, need, potentially a better solution. So, you mentioned that the company Novamind, that you guys are really focused on the more or less the infrastructure to make this new burgeoning industry work. So, what do you got going on currently, and how are you planning on continuing to build out this infrastructure to make it work? And what does the infrastructure even look like
Yeah,
right now? It's not
yeah,
like it's not like we're talking about with cannabis, where it
yeah,
was like getting it ready for, public consumption at however much you
absolutely.
want, so
Yeah.
describe that a little bit.
No, and there's no cash crop here. There's also no recreational market. As far as we're concerned, in the current context, we treat this as a medical business, and whether you're healing the sick or bettering the well, it's the same type of standard of care in terms of protocols and experiences that you're helping. Um, so the what is the infrastructure? I'll answer just really specifically. First of all, the infrastructure is a clinic and retreat network, first of all. So the outpatient mental health clinic network that we operate is called SEDAR Psychiatry. There's 4 of those clinics now in Utah. We partnered our way into this business. Novamind did, in that SEDAR Psychiatry was founded by Dr. Reed Robison. He's also the founder of a clinical research organization called SEDAR Clinical Research. So we own outright 100% of both of those entities, and those are the platforms by which we're going to continue to build that infrastructure. So specifically, that means more clinics and retreats, which I can speak more about. And that platform is going to scale out of Utah and into new jurisdictions starting in early 2021. And that's going to grow really organically in terms of the same way we've owned and operated the first 4 and soon 5 clinics. We'll grow additional clinics, and also via M&A opportunities that we're working on a pipeline now. And the other side of the business is that clinical research organization. The other piece of infrastructure, I should say, is that clinical research organization, and that's a business that serves drug developers, pharmaceutical clients, and not-for-profits and academic institutions that are involved in the drug development, in which we have a lot of experience with. In the past, we've done work including leading Janssen's clinical trials, actually, for Spravato. And Spravato is the first prescribable ketamine prescription available. So the first fast-acting drug for depression in the world. We were deeply involved in the clinical trials through SEDAR Clinical Research. And again, just giving you an indication of how that infrastructure interacts with the type of drug development and protocol development we're talking about.
It's pretty interesting, because on both sides of the business, I can imagine, I have 2 sides right there, and I keep thinking to myself, it seems like the CRO side is where you're going to start to see a lot more interest, because, this is now a trending topic. Psychedelics is, there's been a couple companies that have gone, or one I can think of that went public recently. Now you guys, I think, being the next one up. From a CRO side, it seems to make a lot more sense, because there's going to be a lot more biotech companies that are going to need the product to actually do the clinical trial. So where have you been seeing more interest in what you got going on at Novamind? Has it been more on the clinical side, or with the clinics they have in Utah and the expansion there, or more so on the CRO side?
Yeah, I think that the CRO model is well understood. So there's a lot of interest there. And again, we can point to some of the work. The name of the CRO is SEDAR Clinical Research, I may have mentioned, but it's well known because in part it's involved with the MAPS phase 3 trials with MDMA. It's also involved with Ketamine Research Foundation. I mentioned some of the work with Janssen. So, people understand the work, and they understand the business model as well. On the clinic and retreat side, and I think it's important for us and Novamind, and I'd say from the sector's perspective, those are the organizations that are required and will help advance psychedelic medicine. They'll push the research. So we want to be very involved in that research. In fact, we'd like to be front and center. We are compound agnostic and drug agnostic, in the sense that we'd like to work with as many people as possible so we can provide the associated treatments in our clinics in the future. So certainly a lot of interest there. And on the clinic side, I'd say there's as much interest, but it's not as well understood, because like many people, we are trying to both strategize and execute. against the business model that will prove hopefully to be the model that serves psychedelic medicine in the future. So it's not entirely understood. We don't claim to have it entirely understood, but we try to explain to investors and our stakeholders how we're going about it. They understand that. I encourage all of your viewers and stakeholders in general to have a look at our website and take a close look at how we're going about what we're doing, and judge us on that. And we intend to be one of the top clinic companies that people can have these transformative experiences. That's the goal.
Very cool. All right. And I have to ask on the clinic side, I mean, what is there a regulatory aspect to it to launch some of the new clinics, not just within Utah, but then when you're looking at geographic expansion?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, our business is 100% medical. So the outpatient mental health clinics that we run, just to give you sort of a feel of how they operate, these are the clinics, mental health clinics that people who use them are familiar with, and they provide services like cognitive behavioral therapy and prescription management, some psychiatric services. With Cedar Psychiatry, which again is going to scale, and it's part of why we've raised capital. It's the reason we're going public, to scale those opportunities. Those mental health clinics, if you visited them today in the Utah area, they also provide a lot of the alternative neuropsychiatric modalities, things like transcranial magnetic stimulation, things like Spravato, which I mentioned earlier, and of course, ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, which is something that's gained a lot of attention because it's essentially the first legal model of psychedelic medicine that we can use and we can treat people with in North America.
Very good. All right, Yaron, here's an easy one for you. I mean, they haven't been too bad. I don't think so. But what's your background? How'd you get into all this?
Mm-hmm. So I'm a venture capital investor and operator. I was originally a banker, so a reformed banker, but I've been building from a merchant banking perspective, venture stage companies and growth companies for 10, 12 years now, and mostly with the same partners that I co-founded Novamind with. And, so I tend to invest in the common denominator is risk capital. And about 2 years ago, we were looking at a lot of the data that was coming from the leading institutions like Hopkins and like Imperial College in the UK. And a lot of people were looking at that data. And we understood pretty quickly that our expertise could be used to build a sustainable business around this, and that there was an opportunity to potentially scale, a growth company and help obviously a lot of people. So it was a combination of both me and my partners. There was a moral and altruistic motive for sure, and there was the good fortune of understanding that what I do and I've done in the past in different sectors is create these opportunities, and really it's building the teams around them and capitalizing them and creating the early strategies for execution so that they can live to be greater things. So it worked out really well in this case. We didn't know 2 years ago that it would work out this well. There's a lot of public psychedelic medicine companies now, and it's happened pretty quickly, but we're happy to be playing the role that we play in it for sure.
Very good. All right. Well, to close out this interview today, from what you can tell us, what would you say are some of the company's value catalysts now for 2021?
I think it's associated with the components of our infrastructure that I mentioned before. So on the clinical research side, you'll see you'll see the news as we bring on new sites for new clinical trials. And again, we hope to work on many. You'll see some news around that. You'll see us adding senior people as well. I mean, there's no question we're in hyper growth mode, and scaling things like CROs is not my direct expertise. So we have some very senior people in mind that might come in and do those things, and empower us in that regard, I should say. So on the clinical research side and on the senior leadership side, it's going to be active. And on the clinic side, I think you'll see we're going to have another clinic open in Q1, and expect more of those openings as we scale the clinics.
Very good. Well, with that, Yaron, where can our audience go and find everything they need to know about Novamind?
Novamind.ca, not .com, but .ca. And please do check us out. We'd be happy to engage with anybody. There's lots of ways to reach out to us.
Very good. All right. Well, Yaron, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. Good luck. Stay safe. And I look forward to our next update.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, Bobby.
Thank you.